Grace and peace. Salute. TGIF, right? Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank you for the new subscribers coming through. I saw you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And now, if you go into my other channel, Foxy Moon Premieres, you guys can hit the link, and if you're interested in getting a reading, it'll send you straight into there. All right. So today, it's not a Mindful Monday, but we're going to discuss the book 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro by J.A.Rodgers. All right. I'm finished the book, and my reading selection, a reading advisement would be you should all invest in reading this book. Back in you want to call it slavery days or so, what did they tell us? You want to hide the truth, put it in books, right? So as long as someone's not really reading, they're not going to know what's the truth, what's the real deal. All right. So we're going to dive in a little bit. Hold on a second. My Lotus is here. Yay, Lotus. Look, they fudging with our numbers, Lotus. I went on to Instagram this morning, or earlier rather, because we're still in the morning, right? Grand Rising. And I had to take this clip from somebody because it was so... The page is someone who is trying to bring truth and enlightenment, and so great, kudos to him. But in doing so, you attract certain people. You have your page open, so whatever. And I'm going to just read you what the message this person was writing to the handler, right? IG, to the person's page. Anyway, okay. So this woman goes to say, let me read you the content. So the content was the person on their page, on IG page, was talking about history, Black history, and so forth and so on, right? And how vibrations, because he had posted a Bobby Hemmett, and if those who don't know Bobby Hemmett, do your homework on him. He's one of our teachers in the conscious, and what you call the conscious community, who talks about a lot of esoteric spirituality, awakening, UFOs, if you will. All right. So this woman goes to say now, so I guess I'm Black. She's a white woman, right? And we're going to use the word Black and white today, but we know that those are colors, right, off the rainbow. That's the spectrum of light and things like that, right? We're intelligent people, but for the sake of argument, because this is how America and the world now wants to identify themselves. Some, not all, because we know that the Europeans, they identify themselves as something completely else. If they're Belgium, they're Belgium. If they're, from Sweden, they're Swedish. They're from Switzerland, they're, I don't know what they were called though. But anyway, this is in America, all right? And this, Caucasian woman says, because Bobby Hemmett was talking about, when you get activated and tapped in, your Kundalini has to do with melanin and so forth and so on. So here this woman inserts herself, right? And I'm going to talk about this because this is going to segue me into this book. It's going to segue me into it. All right. So she says, so I guess I'm Black because my Kundalini went all the way up. But that goes with Chickasaw heritage. Now, first she says she guess she's Black, but then she wants to go ahead and say because she got Chickasaw, right? I got Chickasaw heritage, really being Black, which Paul Mooney told me. All right, so Salute to Paul Mooney, because he, from the early 70s, was standing on his very black and proud and talking about the Negro, and he's very, very enlightened person. But he's also a comedian, and I'm not taking any slight at what he's saying. If Paul Mooney had, if anybody knows Paul Mooney's style of comedianship is, and I don't know if that's a word, but you know how I talk, is that he will insert the truth into his comedy, something like of what a Dave Chappelle, which I'm not surprised that Dave Chappelle kind of took a lot of that Paul Mooney essence into his act. But so Paul Mooney would definitely tell you about yourself, especially if you were the black person, right, or a white person. He lets you know, this racism, but he inserts the funniness of it into it when it's really not funny. He's actually speaking a message. But he's going to put some comedian, again, hide the truth in something that's funny, something that you can't read, you're not going to read, right? So this woman says so we're going to go back, all right? So she says, so I guess I'm black because my Kundalini went all the way up. But that goes with the Chickasaw heritage really being black, which Paul Mooney told me. Hence why he told me to tell people my grandmother is black. Really great grandmother, because she was my grandpa's mom. All right, so we're going to dissect this. And this has really nothing, well, it has to do with black and white, but we're going to, by reading J.A.Rodgers' book, we're going to really see what's going on here, right? Because is it really about black and white? Is it really about this race? Right, and we're going to talk about race as well, because, I mean, listen, they really trying to they try to hoodwink us into things, but we're doing that. We're going to go into the fair use as well before I get into J.A.Rodgers' book. All right, so the person who posted this says, the fact that you are aware and accept the truth and seek your truth proves that you have melanin. Melanin means consciousness. All right. And so the woman then says, my cousins pointed out my freckles and said, look, you are a little black. Don't you forget one time that some of these people, if ignorance is bliss, then this woman is that. Okay, I'm going to continue. They were little, and I was watching them, and their dad was teaching them about stuff, and they wanted me to be black. So the guy writes, yep, the energies are boosting with your melanin. All right. She says, I'm not really black. This is after what she just said, making mockery, saying I'm black, and that her cousins wanted her to be black, right? Because they kept saying, oh, you got freckles on your face, and that their father is teaching them about some stuff. She says, I'm not really black, but I do know what I saw, and I didn't burn up, so I'm just saying. The person that on the post says, I know what you mean by black, but as long as you have melanin, nothing of nature will harm you energetically. Listen, I'm going to digress from that. Very recently, within the past year, there's this, how much left I got? Okay, 50%. There is a viral video going around where about 4 or 5 Caucasian little girls, maybe seniors in high school or freshmen in college, for Black History Month, they spray painted one of their roommates' face in black and says, oh, you're going to learn your history today. And then kept talking all this BS and mockery, right? And then laughing about Black history and Black people. So don't you forget for 1 minute that some of these people are still on code with talking about another group of people. the hate still runs very deep within certain groups of people. We, in a joking manner, right? So then you see like a Cat Williams or an Eddie Murphy, right? Because their core audience at the time was what? Caucasian people. And, you know, in fun of, they would say this, but never would they go behind scenes and paint themselves in whiteface and say, oh, I'm Tom, or I'm Rebecca, right? Never do you see that. And if I'm lying, I'm flying. There aren't any viral posts of melanated people dressing up in mockery against any other ethnicity. You don't see them dressing up as Asians, whether they're East Indian or Korean. You don't see them now in defense, some women are wearing blonde wigs, but whatever. But they're not emulating other people or imitating. Because we got to get to some root words. We got to know the meaning of some of these words when we say, oh, this person's emulating you. And that's the highest form of flattery, when somebody's imitating you. No. When you were called a copycat, tell me if you like that word. I'll wait. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to charge up my computer. I'll wait. You let me know if the word copycat made you feel good. What happens when you are a copycat in the art world, in the music world? It's slander. This is a fake. This is a phony. It's not real. Don't give me the BS that's flattery at its highest form. No, it's not. That's somebody who wants to be like you, and that's kind of a problem. Because there's a fine line between emulating and aspiring to be like somebody than to actually be a carbon copy of them or a copycat of them. Let me charge my phone. So we haven't even gotten into the ancestor J.A.Rodgers, but hold on a second. Let me just charge up this here computer. And then we're going to dive into the Ancestors book. Okay? Because they're going to hide the truth on you because most people aren't reading. How do you hide the truth? Put it in books. How do you hide the truth? Put it in books. They're not going to read. Them Negroes is not going to read. They too busy shucking and jiving. They too busy being Chicken George. They're too busy partying and bullshitting. Lotus, am I coming in clear? Drop a 1 in the chat, Lotus. So this is how, and we're still in what they call Black History Month. I talked about this on Monday, Mindful Monday. The author, or rather the founder of Black History, and it was first known as Negro History Week, and Carter G. Woodson wanted to remember Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So the second week in February, he domed it as Negro History Week. So we're going to go through the 100 amazing facts. It's a very short read. I read mostly all of this, but I highlighted the ones that I felt are very key and important to understand. All right. Because a lot of this a lot of this, a lot of what's going on today in modern world, modern times, is that people don't want other people, to know the truth of you all evolved from melanated people at one point in your life. But some people have the distinction and they want to separate themselves, and they're not who they say they are. They don't want to say who they are. Right? So it's the hate that hate gives. They hate the color of their skin. I just read to you what somebody wrote on somebody else's page in regards to one, they tried to speak consciously, and then they turned it into almost this race bait kind of comment, which just made me even more confirming why I needed to talk about J.A.Rodgers. Just eating really quickly. Some fruits. Because we're going to talk. And we're going to put our feelings aside. Right? Because this just, I'm passionate here. Try to put my feelings aside. Venus and Pisces. But this woman clearly, some people want to be accepted by other groups. They love the Black culture, right? Across the world. We talked about this on Monday. Across the world, you have non-melanated people and melanated people emulating the Black American culture. And when somebody says, oh, no, the Black people, again, we're using that word today. Oh, the Black people, they don't have a culture. They didn't come up with anything. I beg your pardon. Pardon me. And I beg to differ. But that's false. If you look at your Southern Black Americans, they came up with jazz, right? They came up with scatting. I don't even want to do a whole history on that. We have to do our due diligence. And so for anybody that says, oh, Black American has no history, has no culture, you're talking sideways. You're talking out of the side of your neck, out of the side of your face, because that's not true. And they set the stage across the world. I talked about Josephine Baker on Monday. She wasn't accepted here as a Black woman. So she went across to France, and they opened arms. They loved her. She didn't have to go through the side gates, through the servant quarters. She went straight in through the front door with all the white Europeans. And that's just entertainment. I'm not saying there wasn't prejudice in France and in Europe, right? In England. I'm not saying that those things didn't exist. But to come back to the United States and have to be ushered through the side doors of buildings, not being able to eat at the establishment that they're performing at, that's a problem. To entertain a segregated audience when they were going overseas, and that wasn't a problem. Oh yes, United States has done damage control on the people's psyche. They wreaked havoc on people's consciousness. I'm going to start reading out of J.A.Rodgers' book. All right. So fair use. I'm going to read the fair use disclaimer. All right. And forgive me if the internet starts wobbling in and out. All right, so fair use copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right, so let's go into reading a little bit. It's the 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. This was written first published in 1934. All right, and it was revised in 1962. This book gathers journalist and historian Joel Augustus Rogers columns from the syndicated newspaper feature titled Your History. All right, so J.A.Rodgers definitely got his research, all right, by reading and getting references from other people. This book is filled with cites quoted from different books and articles that give him the 100 amazing facts. Okay. So let's go into miscellaneous number 91. I'm just going to be jumping all over the place because I have no set order. It's just the things that pop out, and I wanted to make it correlate with this Instagram post that I just read to you guys. All right, so black and colored, on the other hand, have no historic meaning whatever for African peoples. Black from the Anglo-Saxon Black, or B-L-A-E-C, has most horrible meanings to see in any large dictionary. Colored is related to the Latin C-E-L-A-R-E, celare, to conceal, to color up, to paint a thing other than its true light. That's colored. So when the United States government census department were counting some of our ancestors, they were naming them colored. That was to cover up. So the indigenous folks here got reclassified and reclassified and reclassified. So now you have yourself being called African American. I just was doing some paperwork Wednesday, and it asks you, your ethnicity, right? And I was really trying to look to see, what other ethnicities other than the ones that they give you. None. You got to put other, or I prefer not to answer. Because they're going to keep categorizing you as colored or African American or black because they know that those words don't mean jack squat. But do you know that that doesn't mean anything? Of course, there are only one race, and it's the human race. But of all the names used by the stronger group in America to set the dark-skinned citizens apart, Negro is the least objectable. So, some people will say Negro, and they're like, "Oh, that's a bad." No, I call Negro because it's less objectable than you being called a Nigger. Because that's derogatory. There is a basis for the word Negro, and in Spanish it's negro. That's Latin, excuse me. Right? So hold on now. So now we got that part established. Let's go to see where the white people fit into this narrative. Again, I'm going in no particular order. All right. In no particular order. Here, the U.S. Census, fact number 69, the U.S. Census of 1790 showed 194 Negro slave holders. Let's rewind that. The U.S. Census of 1790 showed 195 Negro slaveholders, of whom 6 were in Connecticut and 9 in New York. I didn't know that. And also, side note, New York actually was big with that slave stuff. It wasn't just with that emancipation and everybody was free. Up north, a lot of stuff happened. Like Connecticut, like Boston, or rather Massachusetts, the New York State, the harbors of New York City. You got to think about certain things and why certain things happen. All right, let's move on. In 1830, there were about 4,500 Negro slave holders. When was this, guys? 1830. Where are your pictures? Right, they keep showing us pictures of people coming in from Ellis Island, Europeans being brought over here, which may be AKA something else, AKA slavery. Because in this book, I'm going to talk to you about how there were white people enslaved by black people, or excuse me, by the Negro. Alrighty now, in 1830, there were about 4,500 Negro slaveholders, and in 1836, slaves owned by Negroes in New Orleans numbered 640. All right. On Negro slaveholders, see Popular Science Monthly, October 1912. Thank you, my Lotus. It's not reflecting your up here. So my point is, it's not just what Foxy is talking about on her other channel. This is it. This is it. Hold on. I feel like I need my light on, but hold on a second. That there, my friends, is showing. But that's all right. The truth will set you free. Mm-hmm. No doubt. No doubt. They said, oh, Foxy, inside Foxy's mind, going to be talking about what? Amazing facts of the Negro. Uh-oh. She done built another channel and what now? Oh, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. All right. Let's move forward. All right. Free Negro owners of slaves gives their names to the slaveholders. All right. Now, in speaking of the emancipation, the British Emancipation Proclamation allowed the masters to keep their slaves as apprentices. Ooh, so where did how did these slaves learn how to enslave each other? By being apprentices. They were not really free until 1838. Lincoln's emancipation permitted the retention of the slaves in those slave states which were fighting for the Union. Remember, we talked about this on Monday in regards to Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln. Well, really about that life of let's set the slaves free and things like that. He was like, listen, more importantly, how are we keeping the peace with the Union? How are we keeping the states together? More importantly, slavery is a big business. So, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation permitted the retention of the slaves in those slave states which were fighting for the Union, as well as in those parishes and counties in sympathy with him. He also excluded Tennessee, hoping that it would join the Union. In the words of the proclamation, these states were to continue holding their slaves precisely as if this proclamation was not issued. Told you, he wasn't about that life. It's big business. It has nothing to do with putting your feelings aside. He knew it was immoral, but he said, listen, we're going to do what we got to do. Because remember, around that time, if we're going back into our time machine, remember that this is during the peak of the Industrial Revolution, right? So this is where things are being built, machinery, right? We got the railroads. We're thinking about, was this the time during, watch History Channel, guys. It's not just for entertainment. Like, you can really get some stuff out of there. And I appreciate and salute my master teachers, my mother and my father. Because we sit there and we watch that stuff. This is how I learn some things. Because the education system is not going to talk about that stuff. They're going to keep giving you the propaganda of Lincoln being the most bestest of them all, next to George Washington. And then there you got President's Week. Here you go, you got President's Day next Monday. It's a federal holiday and everybody's off, taking off and doing what? Going shopping and buying electrical appliances. You're not commemorating the man who so-called freed your ancestors. No, you're buying a new washer and dryer so you can wash your funky drawers. Which reminds me, I gotta get some stuff maybe. I don't have no money, so I'm not shopping. Anyway, let's continue. Slavery was abolished, but not by the Emancipation Proclamation, but by the 13th Amendment. Read the 13th Amendment. We must read and understand the U.S. Constitution. That's what it says. You want to deceive some people, or you want to keep the truth in. The truth is behind those books that they're not going to talk to you about. All right. Slavery was abolished not by the Emancipation Proclamation, but by the 13th Amendment on December 31st, 1865, and 8 months after Lincoln's death. So he was a problem. They had to get him out of there. Sounds like JFK. That's a problem. He's a Negro lover. We need to get, that's just on the surface level, let alone the conflicts that he had to deal with NATO and things like that. We're not going to get political. I'm not going to talk about that. Do your research, do your due diligence. But there's sacrifices in this game that they play. All right. And they will take out the commander-in-chief. All right. Speaking of commander-in-chief warfare, let's go to amazing fact number 74. We're reading for those who are just chiming in if they're not, but we're just recapping some of the 100 amazing facts about the Negro. All right. And this is by J.A.Rodgers. So I am not in any specific order. All right. I'm going all over the place depending on what is leading me to read and how it segues into what I'm talking about. So, amazing fact number 74, warfare and commanders. The two greatest colored figures in history of Islam are Baal of Ethiopia and Tariq bin Zayed. He also was a slave and became a great general in Islam and was the commander of the Moorish army which invaded Spain. And then it goes on to talk a little bit more about his conquest. All right. Amazing fact number 75, Hannibal, who was not a cannibal, Hannibal, who died with the rank of commander-in-chief, which is president in my eyes, right? I just said commander-in-chief. So we're going to flow through this organically. We're going to flow through this book on a spiritual notion here. All right. Because that's pretty much how I get my downloads. It's all intuitive. It comes to me like that. All right. There's no real rhyme and reason of what it is unless there's something being presented and I need to discuss it. So Hannibal, who died with the rank of commander-in-chief, was a Negro bought by in Constantinople. All right, read D.M. Wallace, Russia, page 271. Also, Albert Parry, Abraham Hannibal, Journal of Negro History, October 1923. All right, so that was regarding warfare. Warfare in men. On March 26, 1863, Lincoln wrote Johnson, "The colored population is the great available and yet unavailed by force for saving the Union." Why? Because Abraham Lincoln recruited thousands of Black or Negro soldiers to help in the very war that was enslaving them. Okay. Let's move on. Speaking of slavery, all right. Amazing fact number 64. So 63, let's go back. The Century Dictionary says originally one of the Slavs or Slavonians taken in war. Slav originally meant the people of glory. So again, when we're using words, and I need to highlight that, but when we're using these words, right, we need to understand the meanings and go to the dictionary to see what these words actually mean. Because they're going to have us up in the uproar about slavery, and that word is not even, that word right there is letting you know that the people of glory, who are the people of glory? The melanated people. Oh, cha-cha-cha. In 1745, with 400 Germans, to whom only 50 lived to see free America, still another bearing 15,000 lost 1,100 from deaths in the voyage. So when we're talking about, this is in regards to the white slave trade. Let me highlight that because I just went right over that. That just flew over my head. All right. So originally, your true slaves first and foremost were the Slavic people coming out of Russia. And were brought to where? Good old USA. Before it became USA. Are we on the same page? Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. So let's read here. Amazing fact number 64. For the transportation of white slaves to America and their sale, S-A-L-E, sale, see James's O'Neill, The Workers in America History chapter, The White Slave Trade. Ooh. When was this, guys? 1745. When was Columbus over here? What is it? 76? Woof, I laugh when things are really, because it is so mind-blowing, guys. So I'm not laughing at anybody. I am really so, when certain things, I have a weird way of, dealing with certain things that are just so mind-blowing. When somebody says something so incredible that it's just like, what? Either to piss you off or to make you laugh, because it's another form of emotion. It's not, I'm laughing at the injustice. I'm laughing at holy sugar honey iced tea. You said what now? Columbus? Talk to us. Christopher Colon, who was a Spaniard or Italian, who was a henchman for Queen Isabella. All right, never mind. Let's read this whole thing again in regards to slavery. Amazing fact number 64, because I'm just like, we're gonna learn some things today, guys. We're gonna learn some things today. But the transportation, right? So remember, in the century dictionary, originally one of the Slavs or Slavonians were taken in war. All right, Slav originally meant the people of glory, but Slavs also coming from the European country in Russia, the Slavics, okay, and they became enslaved. Ooh, and they were brought over to where? Amazing fact number 64, for the transportation of white slaves to America and their sale. See James O'Neill, The Workers in America History, chapter, The White Slave Trade. All right, he quotes one ship sailing in 1745 with 400 Germans, to whom only 50 lived to see free America. Still, another bearing 1,500 lost 1,100 from deaths on the voyage. Page 64, New York, 1921. So, ancestor J.A.Rodgers is getting, again, his information from whether it be newspaper articles, books. All right, he's not just writing fairy tales and making it sound good. Now, we also have to understand that some of this stuff is about 100 years old, this information, so it doesn't really apply. But we need to have foundation here. We need to know where a lot of these things stem from, right? So that we can now sit here and say, you know what, slavery is the injustice of slavery is what the problem is. All right. The harming of another human is what the problem is. The injustice of it is what the problem is. But make no mistake that white people were also enslaved, and guess what? They watched the black slaveholders doing the injustice. So when we cry about slavery that happened in the southern part of the North America, please understand, or overstand rather, that there were white slaves before your ancestors apparently, allegedly, or so-called came from Africa. There were white slaves here. And guess who was their captors? Melanated people, melanated men doing the labor. So when I'm going to go back and segue back to this post that this woman wrote on somebody's IG page, okay, when she says that, oh, I guess I'm black too, because I got Chickasaw in me, and they're black actually. Then to say, oh, I'm actually not black, I'm just saying. Shut up, please. Because there's two people in this world that are dangerous. The one who's got power and money, and the one who's ignorant. Those are the two most dangerous people in the world. The type of people, rather. Foolishness will get you killed. Dumb, stupid, idiotic way of thinking is going to harm you. Excuse me. This content is taken from a IG page that I started following because they were talking about esoteric things, the whole hoopla of the alien invasion, right? And this person had posted about Bobby Hemmett, the metaphysical scholar of the conscious community, so-called conscious community. And he was talking about Kundalini rising, and this is how spiritual stuff starts to happen to some people. All right, this we're going to use words black and white today, colored. We're going to use that for today's purpose, for today's teachings and lecture. But we know that those words are just colors, right? Spectrums on the rainbow of the light scale. So this woman says, Clearly, blonde hair, blonde hair and blue eyes or green eyes. I don't even know, but she's clearly, her face is, very what have you. All right, so she says, "Oh, so I guess I'm black because my kundalini went all the way up." But that goes with the Chickasaw heritage really being black, which Paul Mooney told me. Okay. So I'm going to stop at that point. I'm going to keep reading the post, but I have to dissect certain things because, again, as I was talking about, is flattery the best form of how do they say it? Flattery is the highest form of I forget what it is. No, I don't think it is. No, I don't think it's that at all. I think that sometimes we imitate or we emulate certain people that we kind of look up to in that respect, right? And so therefore, we may take certain things from people, reading things. I know I did, but you make it into your own, right? Let me turn this down because I got my meditation music. You make it into your own, and that's what makes it original in that respect, right? You cultivate all the thought provoking information, the teachings, and so forth and so on, and you merge it and you mash it into your own thoughts. All right. So I don't know about you, but I didn't like being called a copycat. You would hear back in the days, kids would call each other, "Oh, you're a copycat. You're a biter. You're a biter." And at a meeting, you're taking someone else's style, right? That could look like a Kobe Bryant to a Michael Jordan, right? Now, what is the form of flattery? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. That's it. I don't know about that. I don't know. I can't really accept that as is. I think there's some kind of borderline. There's some type of obsession going on there where you want to be so much like this person, right? So that's a little questionable. For this woman to say, "So I guess I'm black because I got a kundalini rising all the way up." But because my grandfather is Chickasaw, and so that they're black because Paul Mooney, who rightfully so, is a comedian, but he also talked about very social issues in his spiel. Now, she goes on to say, after Paul Mooney told her, not her family, someone told her in her family, someone had to have told her that she's Chickasaw, right? But she said Paul Mooney told her. Now, I don't know if she's friends with the late Paul Mooney, or we don't know. She said, hence why he told me to tell people my grandmother is black. Really great grandmother, because she was my grandpa's mom. So the person who made the post, he says, the fact that you are aware and accept the truth and seek your truth proves you have melanin, and melanin means consciousness. I have to do my research on what the word melanin is, because it is science. But she went all over the place. She went from saying she's black to talking about something spiritual with Kundalini, to talking about her Chickasaw heritage, to saying that a comedian told her to say this and tell her that she's black. Let's continue. She says, my cousins pointed out my freckles and said, look, you are a little black. Listen, I don't know if that sounds like trolling, but that sounds like trolling to me. That sounds like somebody in the guise of wearing white face, inserting themselves in certain arenas where they got no business in, but because it's a public platform, you can go wherever the hell you feel like it. And you're going to get people like this saying ignorant BS. She said her cousins, because she got freckles on her face, says you look a little black. And they were little, she says. And I was watching them, and their dad was teaching them about stuff. She didn't say he was teaching them about black history stuff. She said that their father was teaching them about stuff. And they wanted me to be black. So the guy who posted this post with Bobby Hemmett says, yep, the energies are boosting your melanin. Then she goes on to say, I'm not saying I'm really black, but I know what I saw and didn't burn up, so I'm just saying. Right, because she was talking about her kundalini. Just say that. Just talk about the kundalini. Why you gotta now insert that you have Chictaw? You know that they're black. Your cousins was talking about your face and your freckles. Listen, that sounds like y'all are talking code for blackface and talking about black people behind our backs. She says, I'm not saying I'm really black, but I do know what I saw and didn't burn up, so I'm just saying. He says, I know what you mean by black, but as long as you have melanin, nothing of nature will harm you energetically. Y'all can't see, but my eye is twitching me right now. I'm going cross-eyed over here, guys. I'm going cross-eyed. I'm going cross-eyed. I said... Then I inserted myself into the conversation and told her, ma'am, the fact that you're using the word black in itself is a problem. I started early. Again, this is hilarious. For me, this is hilarious. So I'm really laughing. Like my stomach is like, my cheeks are like this. I said, ma'am, the fact that you're using the word black in itself is a problem because that just means in the eyes of the United States is civilly dead. And I left it just right there. I don't know if she's responded back yet or what have you. But we're going to educate some people today. We're going to educate people on using words like black, right? Because we know that in the eyes of the United States corporation, this is why when census come out, excuse me, and the Census Bureau is starting to do their every 10-year collection, they have categories such as black, white, Hispanic, Native American. You know why the 1% comes back in the Native American category when you're doing your DNA under Ancestry.com, under 21andMe, or whatever the case, whatever these things are, right? It's because they don't go to Native Americans and get their DNA. You see where they got the Native Americans at on reservations. You think they're really going out there doing DNA tests? That's why it's always 1%, 3%. The Native American is actually the people living in the South. Those were the Gullah Geechees. Those are the true natives, the Samoans, and you also got the Arawaks who came from the Caribbeans and migrated. The Tainos migrated up through Florida into the Carolinas. Let's do our history, and this was way before some Christopher Columbus came through. We're talking about millennials that happened. We're looking at geography here. We're going to science and geography class, right? And remembering that Pangea happened once upon a time. This is why stuff is coming out about the Colorado Rockies. Why are certain places put on a no-fly zone? Why are certain areas over there? It's almost like going to Antarctica. You can't. You got the Colorados blocked off. Why? Because there's gold in them hills, as they say. But not only that, there's ancient artifacts that show mummies similar to the ones that they keep showing you out in Egypt, the New Egypt rather, in Giza. Don't get me on my Dick Gregory, because that's a whole nother can of worms that's slowly but surely being opened and exposing. This is the land of milk and honey. Don't you dare for 1 minute forget that. And don't you dare think that other places were there. Yes, they were there. But remember, once upon a time, we were all connected. And once upon a time, we were able to leave from Colorado's and go straight out into Africa. Hold on a second, y'all. Okay, mic check. Sorry, I had to answer that. That was very important. All right, so yeah, I know I'm going off into a tangent, and I'm not talking about 100 amazing facts about the Negro. We got about 3 facts in so far. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. I just wanted us to see about this can of worms that needs to be opened and exposed, because it needs to be. And how do you know these things? Okay, so let me just double check this. Hold on a second again, guys, because now that my books are open for readings, whoop, whoop, I have somebody that booked a reading with me, so perfect. At 1:30. So yeah, we're definitely gonna wrap this up. As much as I wanted to stay on a little longer and talk, we're gonna definitely dive in. But again, I'm not going in any specific order when I'm talking about the 100 amazing facts. I'm just going in through what's being led to me as we're speaking. It's going by organically, right? So now we talked about the white slaves, all right, that they were brought over here from Germany, from Russia. This was pre-1776. This was pre Christopher Columbus and George Washington and all the founding fathers of the 13 colonies. All right, but not many, okay, because Germany brought over about 400 and only 50 lived to see the free states of America. Okay, and then another ship was bearing 1,500 and lost 1,100. So that's about a good, what, 400 that came by. That still, was able from depths of the voyage. Okay. So, amazing fact 65. We're still under slavery. Okay, we're going into amazing fact number 65. For Nat Turner's insurrections, the authentic and imperial native of the tragically events, Southampton County, published by Warner and the West, 1831, Anglo-African magazine. So again, the ancestor J.A.Rodgers is getting his information, his sources from newspaper articles and in books written, and also just talking to people, but definitely to get the facts, he's using articles out of newspapers and books. Okay, so the word Seminole, right? I just talked about the Seminole natives down in Florida. The word Seminole means runaway or fugitive. The Seminoleans were chiefly fugitive Indian and Negro slaves. Now, again, when we're talking about Indian, right, because they reclassified that name, but when we're talking about Indian, we're talking about the indigenous people of the land. We're not talking about native, because anybody is a native of where they live if they've been there long enough, right? They're talking about the indigenous, so that person, man and woman, what, are melanated. They're in darker hue. So you just gave us Negro and Indian. It's the same person. But they back then, that's when all the reclassification started. So it was Indian and Negro, meaning that, but they're the still same people, because the Indians were the ones who were running away. So now the ones that they captured, they reclassified them as Negroes. Latin word, remember. All right. The Somalians were chiefly fugitive Indian and Negro slaves. I just said that they ran away. Those that were running away, they were already here. There were people living on this continent already. Let's look at South America. Let's look at Central America. Let's look at the southern tip of North America. Mexico was still in territory. It was still, we're Arizona. And that's why we got the pyramids there and the gold there and mounds there and the Colorado Rockies and things like that. Because there was the Mexican Aztec civilization living there way before these other people came through and reclassified them. The Louisiana Purchase and Louisiana Territory. Remember, if you look at the maps of the United States, rather America, you can still see where the Mexican territories lie. It was literally split in half of the map. So to the east, you had the 13 colonies, and then to the west, you had all of Mexico. Then you got at the bottom, you got the French, New Orleans, you got the French influence there. But be very clear that Mexico still owns half of the land. I mean, half of the map shows you Mexican territory. And that was only within the 1800s, guys. That's not like back in 17 or 15 or 14 or 13. That's just still, we can read books about that. Okay, I will continue. So the word Seminole means runaway slave or fugitive. The Somalians were chiefly fugitive Indian and Negro slaves and corresponded to the Maroons of Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and South America. They fought wars in the United States. So it's not just in the islands there was an uproar, but you, like I said, you had the Maroons, or AKA Tainos, AKA Arawaks, fleeing their homeland and coming through the way of Florida up to as far up north as they can go. And that's on the east coast of things. Okay. And this is 1859, guys, 1831. That time span there, that's about 20 years. So I just said that the Maroons, all right, who fought their freedom in Haiti, who did their revolution in Cuba, who did their revolution in Jamaica, also were part in Florida as well. This is the Seminoles. The Seminoles are your Maroons. They are your Tainos. They are your Arawaks. And then they merged and inbred it with, or excuse me, not inbred, but they merged with the Indians that were already, or excuse me, the indigenous people that were already living there. Okay, this is pre bringing slaves from Africa, the West African, South African. This is pre that. Okay. CM. Okay, so now we're in amazing fact number 67. CM McInnes says the West Indies, the white servants were often placed under black overseers who treated them with particular barbarity. Let's read that again. All right. C.M. McInnes, sounds like he's Irish, says of the West Indies. Where are the West Indies? That's Jamaica, Tobago, Trinidad, Barbados, Bahamas, Cuba, Haiti. Says that the white servants were often placed under black overseers. Okay. Who treated them with particular barbarity. So who do you think learned what from whom? You can't just say, oh, those white overseers, they treated their slaves, they watched you and saw how you were treating others and took a page out of your book. And then they became the enforcers, the enslavers, and did the barbarity to you. This is not a white man writing this, guys. So we got to jump out of these feelings of we have to face the facts. Okay. As the blacks born in the islands acquired a knowledge of handicrafts, the white servants were compelled to do the roughest, hardest work in the fields. This is in the West Indies. This is in the West Indies, right? As the blacks born in the island acquired a knowledge of handicrafts, the white servants were compelled to do the roughest, hardest work in the fields. This is coming from source An Introduction of the Economic History of the British Empire, page 31 through 35, London, 1935. Okay. And amazing fact number 69, the U.S. Census of 1790 showed 195 Negro slaveholders. I read this before, of whom 6 were in Connecticut and 9 in New York. This is in 1790's U.S. Census. Negro slaveholders, of whom were in Connecticut and 9 in New York. And this is coming out of Popular Science Monthly, 1912. Carter G. Woodson. Free Negro owners of slaves. Gives the names of the slaveholders. Remember, we were talking about Carter G. Woodson on Monday and how Negro history came out of him, not being able to go to certain organizations that he had ties with and paying his dues. No one wanted to hear about the black people's plight. Okay. Now we're going to go back a little bit. So we're coming out of slavery, and let's see here. Race mixing. All right. Race mixing. Amazing fact number 41. In September 1664, Maryland passed a law that any white woman who married a Negro should serve the master of such slave for life. Slaveholders took advantage of this law to induce the white woman, some of whom were recent arrivals, to marry the Negro. So these white women were essentially married to the Negro slaveholders, but stayed as servants, and they needed to stay with them. The law had it where you're going to stay with this man, but you're going to be a servant, not recognized as the wife. Okay. Now, 42, amazing fact number 42. Calhoun says, all right, so, and that was all coming out of McCormick says, instead of preventing such marriages, this law enabled a vicarious and unprincipled master to convert many of their white servants into slaves. All right, and that's coming out of the Archives of Maryland, Volume 1, pages 433 through 334, and volumes number 3. All right. Also, Johns Hopkins University studies in historic and politics science and political science. What is true of Maryland was true of the other states. So not only was Maryland doing this, but other states. And Maryland is what we want to consider a northern state, still kind of in that slave mentality. But guess what? The slave owners were Black, right? We're using the words Black and white today. We're using Negro and colored today. But you had in 1664 Negro slave holders. Again, this is before the transatlantic. Because remember, back and during that time, Germans and Russians were being brought over here as slaves. Okay. Amazing fact number 42. Calhoun says a considerable portion of Jefferson's slaves, President Jefferson, were his own children. We know this. If we don't, now we do. He bequeathed freedom to 5 of his children, and the assembly passed a law allowing them to remain in the state. Why? Because half of them were Negro. A.W. Calhoun, Social History of America, American Family, Volume 2, page 300, Cleveland, Ohio, 1918. Jefferson's favorite concubine was the famous Black South. The following are 2 lines from the Jeffersonade written about both of them. It quotes, "Oh, seek in dark and dirty alley a Mr. Jefferson's Miss Sally," page 7 through 16. Jefferson had Black Sal to take his white daughter to France. H.W. Pearson's Jefferson at Monticello, page 107 through 110, New York, 1862. At Jefferson's deathbed was an almost white Negro girl believed to be his daughter, but which the writer says belonged to another man, evidently noted, because he leaves the name blank on page 110. One of Jefferson's daughters was sold as a slave at New Orleans. All right, so see Liberator. For others, see Sex and Race, Volume 2. The book Sex and Race. Okay. Napoleon, amazing fact number 43. Napoleon, we know Napoleon Bonaparte, the French general. The question of the liberty of the Blacks is very complicated and difficult in Haiti. In Africa and Asia, it has been resolved. Why? Because then they colonized your people out in Africa already. But the indigenous people on this side of the equator weren't having all of that. They were having uproars and revolts. Okay. So Bonaparte says in Africa and Asia, he says the question of the liberty of the Blacks is a very complicated and difficult in Haiti, Caribbeans, West Indies. Okay. In Africa and Asia, it has been resolved, but it has been so by means of polygamy, right? So now what are we doing? What are we doing? The whites and the blacks, they're from part of the same family. The head of the family having white and black wives and wives of color. The white and the mulatto children are brothers, are bred in the same cradle, bear the same name, and ate of the same plate. Would it be impossible to authorize polygamy in our islands, restricting the numbers of wives to 2, 1 white, 1 black? The first consul, Napoleon, had several conferences with these theologians on the grand measure. So let's get, the whites and the blacks and mix. That's what they did in Africa. That's what they did in Asia. They threw in that polygamy. Oh, they're going to stay in this. This is why you got the inbreds. Where do you think that's coming from? It's not something we were thinking about. This is something that somebody else is thinking about to keep this going. Why? Because it's now, you're in the family, it's docile, we'll keep the slave thing going on. Right? Let's go back. Let's go back to Jews and Ethiopians. Amazing fact number 29. It says here, the Quran reads, and Moses drew forth his hand out of his bosom, and behold, it appeared white unto the spectators. Page 128 in the Quran. And put thy right hand under thy left arm, it shall come forth white. There's a tradition that Moses was a very swarthy man. All right, in the Sale al-Quran. Sir T.W. Arnold says, according to the Mohammedan tradition, Moses was a black man. Right. The argument is so often made that Miriam's objections to Moses' Ethiopian wife was one of color is wrong. There was no color prejudice then. Besides, the Jews at the time were also colored. Miriam's objection must have been a national or tribal one. The same exists among the Negroes on the West African coast now, and among the Jews themselves in India. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because you know what's going on there. Let's move back a little bit. Yeah, and we're going to talk about education. Here's some miscellaneous. Negro is probably the oldest of the Negritos, are the oldest known branch of the human race. Negro comes from the river Niger, and Niger found its way into Latin. And since the people from the region were very dark-skinned, Niger, nigra, nigrum came to mean black. Negro, negrito, negrita means the people of the great river. Black and colored like white are, on the other hand, European words. All right, so that's how we're going to end that, because that's what that is. There's nothing more to it. But I said, for all intents and purposes, we're going to use the words black, colored, and white today. Okay. Ethiopian and more were popularly used to describe the so-called blacks until the 1500s. And Africa comes from the ancient Egyptian Afrika or Kafrika, the land of Kafir. Okay. So this book is very great to have when you want to reference back certain things. All right. Here's another not miscellaneous, but part put under again the 100 facts, amazing facts. All right. White children, fact number 67. White children were kidnapped in the British Isles at the rate of several thousand yearly in the 1700s and 18th, in the 17th and 18th century, and sold into slavery in America and the West Indies. White Americans, North and South, were also kidnapped and seduced and sold as Negroes as late as 1859. One of the most celebrated cases of white person sold as a Negro was Sally Muller, who was held in servitude in Louisiana for 26 years. Court after court ruled against her. Finally, her birth certificate was dug up in Germany, and she was freed by the Supreme Court in 1818. Okay. So we need to know the facts about things, and then we'll know not to say stupid, insensitive things as, so I'm black because I got my Kundalini on ride. The oldest and most noted statue in the world bears the face of a Negro. This is in religion. We're talking about religion. So once upon a time, everything was of a darker complexion, right? And then with the mixed racing and what Napoleon was talking about as far as polygamy and having the white woman and the black woman mixing with the black men, right? Because Africa and Asia had melanated black men. And so did the West Indies. Let's get that going. And so now we're keeping that in the family. No one's going to go nowhere. No one's going to uprise now because you're all in the same family. And this is normal. They've done it to keep it normal, right? But if you go to the West Indies, he said, what? Haiti, I got problems in there. Why? Because they were revolting against all that. Same thing in Jamaica. You got the Maroons hacking off colonizers and going up into the mountains because they're like, we're not having this. This is our land. We're going to fight for it. The Bible classifies, and we're going into religion again, all right? The Bible classifies the Ethiopian and the Jew together. Are ye not the children of Ethiopia unto me, or children of Israel, saith the Lord? The Chaldea, the land in which the Jews originated, was also a Negro land. Hence, Abraham might also have been black. But when we get to talking about where that was at, I just talked to you about Colorado. Who were those people over there in the States? Just talked to you about Pangea. The Negro Jews of India are not permitted to enter the same synagogues as the white ones, nor to bury their dead in the same cemeteries. Now, this is coming out of what, 32? Let's see what 32 is. Science and Inventions, George Washington Carver. This is coming out of Amazing Facts number 28. George Washington Carver of Tuskegee Institute, one of the world's greatest agriculture chemists, botanists, and artists, was awarded the Roosevelt Medal in 1939 for distinguished services in the field of science. Dr. Carver was born a slave. Thomas Edison once offered him a large salary to take charge of the Edison laboratories, but Carver refused in order to continue the work he had with Booker T. Washington. He said, I'm going to keep being blackety black and teaching But he didn't look at it that way. He really looked at everybody. He took his Christian upbringing to heart, but he also was a man of science and understood what some of us are not understanding now. Okay. 2 centuries ago, Negroes of South Africa and the Northern Europeans both practiced a form of cannibalism that is strikingly similar. Of the vital organs of slain foes, the Negroes made a muti or charm against evil. Guys, where do you think shrunken heads was coming from? I mean, we don't. Those are some things that we don't want to face the reality to. We're gonna be like, no, they was doing all that. They eat each other. They're cannibals. Hold on a second. 2 centuries ago, Negroes of South Africa and Northern Europeans both practiced a form of cannibalism. The Negroes made a muti or a charm against evil. Sometimes they ate the heart of a brave man, believing that it gave added courage. Europeans would most likely roast or dry the bodies of the hanged criminals. And that's a little bit much. And then of these, they made mumia a medicine for internal and external use, which was supposed to have a particular curative charm. And in 1683, when the Germans defeated the Turks of Aachen, Switzerland, thousands surrendered Turks were treated in this manner. An army surgeon who was present wrote, "None were given grace. All were massacred. In most cases, they were skinned. The fatty parts were roasted and the genitals cut off, dried, and put into big sacks. And of this, they made precious mumia." Regular cannibalism existed in Germany as late as 1650. Okay. And let's see, ancient civilization. Negroes lived in America thousands of years before Columbus. Central America monuments show numerous carvings of them as gods. And when Columbus came to the New World, Negroes had been crossing from Africa to South America as a distance of 1,600 miles. So don't sit here and think that people weren't going back and forth before Columbus. It's just that those ancient civilizations weren't really recording it in books the way, Columbus and them had their little papyruses or whatever you have, and writing it out that way. Okay. The first white man to reach the American mainland tell of seeing Negroes. Columbus, who visited South America, said that he had heard of them. The present Negro race of Africa perhaps did not originate there, but Asia and Oceania. The earliest inhabitants of Africa were not black but brown. Today, the peoples of mixed and unmixed Negro descent living in Asia and Oceania probably exceeded in number the present Negro population of Africa. India has millions of Negroes. The purest Negro types are in Southern Asia. And in 1923, Dr. Joseph Rock, United States Department of Agriculture, discovered a ratio unknown Negro race, the Nakas, 200,000 in number in southern China. And in 1934, E.W.P. Chinnery discovered an unknown Negro people in New Guinea near Australia. He reports that they have a civilization superior to their neighbors who lived under white rule. Another also little tidbit is that in the United States Army drafts in World War I, the Negro proved physically fitter than the white man. And for every 100 men physically examined, the ratio of colored men found physically unqualified for general military service was substantially higher than the ratio of white men by just 5%. Illiteracy and intelligence. The people of Southern Europe, including Italy, and most of Eastern Europe, including Russia, were more illiterate, okay, than the Negroes of the United States. So don't you be hoodwinked and fooled with the watermelon eating, shucking and jiving propaganda portrayals in the cartoons of the 1930s and 40s that Negroes were slow, docile, and stupid. Because here we clearly see that they were not, and that there's supreme intelligence, and they are physically fit to the counterpart of the white male. Okay. In the United States Army intelligence tests during World War I, the Negroes of Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, and Ohio led whites of Mississippi, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Georgia by 1 to 7%. World War I was what? 1911, 1912? The northern blacks, the northern Negroes of Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, and Ohio. Shout out to Chicago, New York City, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Philadelphia. Shout out to those Negroes and our ancestors during that time who were smarter than the southern white males coming from Mississippi, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Georgia. All right. The founder of the city of Chicago was Baptiste Point de Salville, a Negro in 1779. The founder of Chicago was a melanated man. Okay. Tip-o-Tib, now we're talking about exploration. Tip-o-Tib, a Negro trader in slaves and ivory from Zanzibar, East Africa, was the first civilized man to penetrate the central of Africa. He has explored territory nearly as large as the United States. Stanley Westman Cameron and other white explorers followed his path. He died in 1905, very rich. A Negro who was a slave trader and ivory trader, meaning that he conducted business through slave trade and through ivory trade, and went through East Africa. That were as large as some parts in the United States. And that white explorers went and then followed his path. See? So when we're talking about the white person, they're only doing what their ancestors were shown, and they were enslaved and captors as well. And some couldn't even handle the slave enslavement. Okay. Let's see if we can get something else here. All right. Ancient civilization. The Grimaldi, a Negro race, lived in Europe as late as 12,000 years ago. Two complete Grimaldi skeletons are in the Museum of Monaco near Monte Carlo. Abundant traces of their culture have been unearthed in southern and central Europe. Okay. Cheops, a Negro, built the Great Pyramid, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. The Ganges, a sacred river in India, is named after an Ethiopian king of that name who conquered Asia as far as this river. The most ancient lineage in the world is that of the Ethiopian royal family. It is said to be older than King George by 6,133 years. Negroes lived in America thousands of years before Columbus, as I said. Okay, so we're going to stop there because we're pretty much finished with this book. Again, it's a very short read, but it has some very interesting facts that we should know about, and we should always go back and reference when we start hearing propagandas on the so-called Black person. All right, we have to know that when we are dealing with media and such, they're going to put some type of propagandize so that you can follow suit. You're watching, you're listening, and you're thinking what this is. By now, you should know not everything that you see in media is real. What they're trying to do currently is going to give us the invasion of aliens. So they're going to be talking about aliens now. Social media's got a lot of people bringing up aliens again. Leave them alone. Because if you really want them to start some stuff, it's going to be a problem. So I would leave them alone. All right, because like the superior race of Negroes, they are ones too. And you keep playing stupid games, you're going to get stupid prizes. Okay. Don't let media sit here and hoodwink you into thinking that what is being shown to us is law. All right. It's not all true. So, just as I said from the beginning of this conversation, this lecture, this lesson, you want to know the truth, read it in a book. Because they put all they hide everything in the books. So they don't want everybody to know these things. I just read to you who were the most intelligent and literate just in the United States. Northern Negro people. So when you hear things like poor white trash, derogatory words, you got to wonder where that's coming from. There you have the illiteracy. So don't dare say, oh, the black. Now listen, there's ignorance in every culture. There's buffoonery in every civilization. All right. So you weed out the weakest link. But know that some people have imitated, emulated, and watched how other people got ahead in life and how they succeeded. Remember the Black Emperor Mansa Musa. He's so-called African. One of the richest melanated men in the world in the pre-dynastic era. Right? So, again, reading and doing our due diligence and not taking everything on face value And being mindful about what you are listening to and watching will do you service. Because yeah, it's a great time. We're in the age of Aquarian and things are starting to be exposed and so forth. But a lot of stuff is going through the pipeline that is going to make you think the world is going to, going through this end and stuff. Listen, at some point, every civilization starts to crumble. But you have to be smart enough. These people are going to be using all kinds of tactics to have us scared. But you got to understand there's a root to all of this. Oh yeah, and we talk about race. That's the race. The great race is to keep one civilization on top. Who can be the smartest of them all? That's the great race. Because remember, it's only one and it's human. Now, humans want to outdo each other. So there's this prejudice. There's this, segregation. There's this biasness. It's not racism, though, guys. It's not. The race is to keep you thinking you're a racist. That's not the truth. You might be biased, you might be prejudiced against certain things, but you're not a race. You're not in a race for another race and outdo them. So with that all being said, I appreciate everybody who's going to be stopping by on the replay and catching this live later on. Thank you, my Lotus, my moderator extraordinaire, for being here. All right. I will try to have a Mindful Monday. I will put, if I'm not, or if I am, I will alert you guys on the other channel and on this channel, send out emails. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, but also make sure to hit the notification bell so you are aware of when I do come on live. All right. And also, I will be doing my midweek check-in on my other channel for next week, or hopefully I can do it then. I have some things going on as well, but I will send out notifications for sure and let everybody know what is what's the dealio, and keep you guys abreast as possible. But it's very important to make sure to hit the notification bell, right, and the like button, because it keeps us this in a momentum in space and time. Yes, my Lotus, you as well. Okay. And we will come back. We will reconvene for another lesson, and I have another book I might want to talk about. But we're in Black History Month, guys, and so we Black history. So we need to start peeling back the layers of what certain things mean. And I think a best place to start with is 100 Amazing Facts. And it's taken me about 5 years, maybe even more than that. I think I've been watching some videos about 5 years to get this book. And now that I've gotten it, it's definitely shifted the perception again of what I've been taught living in America. And knowing that, there were Negro slaveholders to white people, men and women. And know that they were watching their captors doing certain things, and then they flipped the script. All right, we don't have information of how these people escaped. Most of them were married off. All right, so there you have the intermingling of genetics and things and so forth, right? But for the most part, there were slave owners that were of darker complexion, right? So we can't be too mad at the slave owners and holders that we hear of as of late, right? When you're looking at Louisiana or North Carolina and things like, they're only emulating the people that captured their ancestors. So when we're hearing the whole race debate and the race this, that, and the third, no. I think everybody should read the amazing 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro by J.A.Rodgers, to then help them understand certain things and then move on. Because now you have this information, now you can apply it to, you know what, I'm not saying let your guard down and be kumbaya with everybody at the same time, because listen, like I said, there's fools and whack jobs in every society, in every walk of life. But you can then kind of walk around like not holding all this hostility and not holding all this hate in, because you know your history, you know about certain things, and then you can't sit there and start thinking. The only thing that we have a problem with in the corporation is that they have their rules and regulations. They have their laws that they imply. And so you have injustices of humanity, of civil rights. And what they did to flip the script on you was classify themselves as white, because who were the foreigners? Who were the white people? It was the Germans and the Russians that were brought over here, right? And the British, they came through. So they classified themselves as white and made the law stick for them, and reclassified the indigenous melanated person as Indian, as colored, Negro, and then colored. Now you got Black, and then African American. So they did this. So yes, there's where we have the problem at. Right? And so until we start learning about legal and economics and finances, then that's another story for another time. And then we can then say, all right, this is what we can do. But when you start hearing people just talking sideways and the injustices and and other cultures and other ethnicities are getting their rights and stuff like that. You know why? Because they're being labeled white. They're being classified. So when you have an Asian, or when you have like Vice President Kamala Harris, who is not an American, who is not a citizen, rather, of America, who has identified herself as a colored woman, right? Because the classification during that time when her parents were under that census classification, they're colored. They didn't say they're Negroes. They said they're colored, because that's exactly what they are. They're, brown skin complexion, but they're not Black. And she wants to cater to the Black community, the plight of the Black beings. But she didn't grow up that way. She, definitely not an American citizen. She lived in Canada. Now, whether she got dual citizenship, I don't know. I don't follow her like that. So I don't know what her citizenship status is. I don't really care. But when she's presenting herself to be a colored woman for the Black woman, it's already a disservice. All right. And then with the track records of her being whatever political person that she was out in the state of California, she wasn't putting away a different ethnic group. She was putting away the very same people she's trying to cater for and her president is catering towards now. Talking about if you don't vote, you're not black. No one in history have I heard that. Nowhere. You got JFK, who tried to do the very best to work with integrating the blacks and the whites, north and south, ending segregation, right? To a president in the same political party saying, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Do you see the shift? So, you know, it's a disservice. So that's the issue, is that the politics of it all. That's where the issues are, not the colorism, not the black and white thing. No. They want us to keep that going because that feeds them. That adds fuel to the flame and keeps them warm at night. But the truth of the matter is, we know who the most literate of them all were and are. Now you got a disproportion of illiterate melanated children. Why? Because, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, they want to take out certain things so that your melanated child does not learn, does not know things. So once we start teaching every child equally the basis and basics of things, it's going to be a different ball game. It's a different ball game. All right. Okay, y'all. So with that being said, I'm ending this broadcast. I appreciate you all again on the replay, my Lotus. I'm going to promote for a little bit while we're on this platform, is that if you're interested in readings, you can go into my other channel to get personal readings. I just had one booked today, so I'm super excited for the new year just started, or the new year, depending on how you look at it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can do that. It's now fixed. I fixed the glitch that was happening, and stay tuned for the notifications of when I'm going to be going live, or just posting comments. Make sure you go into the community section of this channel, so you'll be updated of all things that are going on with this channel, maybe even with the other channel. And be kind to yourself. We're going through some stuff. We're going through some changes again. Take it easy. Don't try to let too much of the information get you, because you can get a little mad, a little crazy in the brain, because it can be overwhelming. So take it easy. Take it step by step. And with that all being said, catch you on the flip side.